If you're an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then the UK Property Market Stat Show, is for you. My name is Chris Watkin, and each week I'm joined by a special guest. This week I'm joined by the wonderful Simon Gates. We'll come to Simon in a second. Why should you watch this show? Well, the British are obsessed with the property market. Whenever you go to a barbecue and someone finds out that you're an estate agent, the first question they always ask you is, what's the market like? Well, this show's for you because we're going to tell you what's happening in the property market. And your vendors, as I said, are absolutely fascinated by it. So we've got graphs galore. And if you watch the show, you can use those graphs on your valuations and look really impressive and knowledgeable about what you're talking about. Week 30 of 2025, can you believe it? And week 30, just for the benefit of everyone watching, is Monday the 28th of July all the way through to include Sunday the 3rd of August. This week, the special guest returning, I think either for the fourth or fifth time, is the wonderful Simon Gates. He is a guru, a thought leader when it comes to using property market data to make homeowners use their estate agency. He's a man that I look up to. He's absolutely exceptional. Thanks for joining me today, Simon.
Thank you very much for having me back, Chris. Looking forward to geeking out on the latest data.
Indeed, indeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who have not watched the show before, it lasts approximately 1 hour. The first half looks at what's happening in the property market this week, comparing this week against other week 30s, going back to 2017, and we'll be looking at the year-to-date stuff as well, looking at listings, fall-throughs, price reductions, exchanges, house prices, and other such awesome stuff. The second half of the show is where we pick a town or a city and really deep dive and have a look at what's happening in that particular market and who the movers and shakers are when it comes to estate agents. Now, this week we're going to Croydon. If you are a Croydon agent, this is mandatory watching because then you'll be able to see how well you're comparing against your competitors. If you're not from Croydon, then feel free to switch off. But what I would say is this. Many of you out there are doing a really great job as an estate agent, grinding a living, and you're being beaten by cheap fee agents and overvaluing. And myself and Simon are going to be using a piece of software, which both of us consider is, if not the best, well, it is the best piece of kit that you can prove that you are an exceptional agent. You can prove that your competitors are overvaluing. You can prove whether you're selling houses and they're just listing them and withdrawing them. So if you're suffering from overvaluing, cheap fees, and shit competitors, pardon the phrase, then listen to that part of the show, see how that software works in action, because that software is available on the market at a very reasonable price. Neither myself nor Simon get any kickback for using that software. Both of us use it. The software provider does provide it to us both free of charge, but on the understanding that we don't get any commission. But do have a look at it, because if you're suffering from those sort of things, this could as good as you. It's only if you're as good as you think you are, could be competitors. So without further ado, Simon, shall we go and have a look at those Stellaroonies?
Let's do it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the way this works is we start with the listings. I spend 30 seconds just going through this, and then we go over to Simon for his thoughts. So, okay, let's kick off. And the number of listings this week is 33,684 compared to last week at 33,000, the week before 34,300. I'll just put this on a graph here. The week before that, 35,800. The week before that, 36. So again, there is a slight dropping of listings, but as you can see from the graph here, that does tend to happen. I don't know if anyone's told us, but it is the summer holidays. Year to date, in terms of the number of listings, 1.1 million properties have come onto the market, which is 12% higher than the 9-year average. 4.1% ahead of last year and 6.9% ahead of the more, if there is such a thing, normal years of 17, 18 and 19. The average asking price of a property coming onto the market is 411,900. We will be analysing that in a little bit more detail in some other graphs. Over to you, Simon, for your thoughts on listings.
Yeah, as you said, it's no surprise in terms of seasonality that yeah, funnily enough, we are on a summer holiday, so that is going to impact activity. But I think in terms of the year to date, on graph one, the fact that there is what was the figure? 12.5% higher than the 9 year average, and then as you said, up on last year. I think that's showing the intent from the British public that they do want to get on with it. They do want to move, and perhaps affordability levels have got to a point now where they can actually do it. They're realizing that interest rates are not going to return to what they were a few years ago. I don't know about you, Chris, but a trend I'm definitely seeing is a return to the market of sellers who perhaps tried to sell in late 22, early 23 when the market wasn't very good. So I think that's propping up the listing numbers as well.
Well, I'm not. I don't know how we find that information out. What I am noticing is, and you used to work for them, there is the home search platform that is showing the number of people who are relisting their properties who bought in the last three
Mm.
years. And that number, are you seeing that rising? Again, I haven't got a. I can. We know the numbers, but I don't know if that's rising or dropping. Is that? Would you know, or anecdotally?
Yeah, I don't have a data off the top of my head, but anecdotally, yeah, it is still rising because I used this on a podcast recently. You imagine you bought a house in 2020 on a 5 year fixed rate and you fell asleep at that point and you wake up 5 years later and go, this is what your interest rate is now. Sure, it is cheaper than it was 2 years ago, but it's still considerably more than 5 years ago. There perhaps are some people who stretch themselves a little bit. There are obviously others who have had a change in lifestyle, working circumstances. There's been births, there's been divorces all through that COVID market. So it has meant there's been an increase in people changing, selling their property quicker than normal
Yep.
on
Yep.
that.
A
So
lot of people bought in haste, didn't they? Especially, in 21, where, have a look here. This graph here shows us the number of properties for sale. And these are the figures for the 31st of January going into the 1st of August, okay? And every yellow line is the midnight of 31st stroke the first of August. And again, some people will say here, well, the stock is rising. It is rising, but let us just remember that figure, and I say this on most shows, that figure was 1.3 million back in 2008. And that's what caused house prices to drop, was the excess supply of properties coming on the market. And correspondingly, the credit crunch meant people couldn't get mortgages. So you had increased supply, you had curtailed demand, and when you have that in any commodity or anything that buys and sells, prices come down. So a big tip, ladies and gentlemen, is if you were an estate agent watching this, I would once a month, I would work out how many properties are for sale for all the main four types of detached, semi, terraced, and flat. And if you were smart, you might do two beds and three beds, and judge that and for the first few months write it down, but then eventually put it into a graph. So therefore, you can actually say to vendors, there's three times as many three-bedroom semis on the market today than what there were when you bought it. And that's where, again, if you look at the power of the software we're going to be using this afternoon, not this afternoon, later in the show, whilst it doesn't split it by bedrooms, it does split it by type. You can judge this and show this. And there are other websites that show you that as well. I don't know if you use it yourself, Simon, but the home.co.uk
exactly, I was thinking that when you were speaking. Yeah,
is a great website, and it puts it into bedroom types, and that actually does show you the number of homes that are for sale since going back to 2007. Okay, Simon and myself really are data geeks, okay, and that is saying something. Now you don't have to be at the level that we are, but the magic thing is this: is that all of you are finding it really difficult to stand out from the crowd, and estate agents naturally are not data people because they're people, happy people. And I'm not being derogatory there. That's our personality type. And what I'm trying to say is this: is if you can stand up by the crowd by talking about the property market and backing it up with data, because data doesn't lie, it makes you appear to be the most knowledgeable agent in the town. And can I just remind you, ladies and gentlemen, These graphs are available to download free of charge on YouTube. If you go down to the description all the way down to the bottom, you can download them. You're not to use them on social media because my clients use them on social media. My daytime job, like Simon, is we are ghostwriters writing articles on property markets. But I've got no issue at all with you using these on the sofa in front of vendors, free of charge, and you can use them to your heart's content. Just don't put them on social. But please be the local property expert. I know that name has not got a particularly, sort of purple feel to it, but it is. That's what people want, isn't it? They want the local property expert.
Yeah, I think just on that point, if I know you share this a lot on socials from kind of Property Academy research, but Zoopla did a study recently. I think it hit the industry press, and the most like popular reasons for why people chose the agents they chose were they know what's going on locally, they're experts in their market locally. So that's most recent research from Zoopla. Like, go find that article and be like, right, I need to be the local property expert then.
Yeah. Yeah, the stats from the Property Academy, 36%, because they interviewed 10, they surveyed 10,000 vendors. 36% or 3,600 vendors said they chose their agent based on that agent's local property market knowledge. There you go. Let's get back off our soapbox. Carry on. Price reductions. So again, the number of price reductions this week, 22,673, based on we did just have that based on 763,000 properties on the market. So if we base that, the number of properties that were reduced last month was 14.1%, which is identical percentage to what it was the month before. But still, reducing stock in 1 in 7 homes, I just don't think that's enough. Average price of a property coming down 392. Remind ourselves, the average price coming on the market 411. Okay, so it looks like the lower price properties are coming down in price. Thoughts? Anything on that? Anything, any insights?
Well, when you said about not enough price reductions, it's interesting you say that because it shows the price sensitivity in the market and how much overvaluing is going on. And I'll ask a question on the off the back of that in a second. But before jumping on, one of the things I'd found, Chris, was that July was the highest number of price reductions that I could find on the 20A platform, and it was the third month in a row, but it's exceeded 100,000. So like there's so many price reductions happening, yet it's still not enough to your point, which is why, having those courageous conversations in the living room at the start, telling people what they need to hear rather than what they want to hear is so important because price reduced properties are less likely to sell, more likely to fall through. If they do sell, they take longer, etc., etc. But my question to you is, who do you think is to blame? I'm not trying to throw a grenade your way. Who is to blame? Is it agents or is it owners for overvaluing?
Who is to blame for overvaluing, the vendors or the homeowners? Um, the homeowners have a responsibility to themselves to ensure that the property they're putting onto the market is fairly priced if they want to sell. Humans are naturally greedy,
Yeah.
so therefore, they have a responsibility to educate themselves that an estate agent can go in and overvalue to get their business. Ultimately, the relationship comes down to is that they are wanting a service from an estate agent, and therefore, ultimately, the final responsibility has to lie with the agent. There's always going to be homeowners that will pick the highest price, just like there'll always be homeowners that will always pick the lowest fee, irrespective of what is said. But when you are only moving on average, most people only, 50% of people are going to move in the first few times every 5 or 6 years, and then they move every 30 years. Yes, they have a responsibility to learn to find out for themselves, but ultimately it's our job as estate agents to teach them. The problem is that estate agents want the listing more than the homeowner wants the sale. And
That's the key point. Yeah.
until that relationship changes where they want the sale more than we want the listing, it will never change. But and and could we wave a magic? Will Roper do anything? Of course it won't. We'll just change the rules of the playing field, but they're still going to play by the same game. You can't legislate against this. Each estate agent, ultimately there are too many estate agents and not enough houses coming on the market, Simon.
Yeah.
And until such a time that you have too many valuations coming in that you can pick and choose and you can afford to let the other valuations go, that then you will never solve the problem for yourself. So ultimately, your job as an estate agent is to be called out to as many valuations as possible, so you can choose which properties you put on the market at the right price, and you can let the overvalue stuff go with the competition. So ultimately, it comes down to what marketing are you doing to attract people to you at the top of the funnel, which means you don't have to suffer from that further down the funnel. I will now step off my soapbox.
Fair enough. Well explained. Yeah, I think I think the key point from that is the agent wants a listing more than the seller wants to sell. I think that's an incredibly powerful point.
There you go. So there you go. And you can only change one vendor at a time.
Yeah,
And if you do have to lose it, this is the bit. If you do have to walk away and learn to love rejection, don't treat it like you're a 14-year-old and the girl that you fancied at the bus stop said no. So now she is person non gratis. You're never going to speak to her in the life, and she has damned you from the heart. You've now got to nurture that relationship and speak to them more often as if they had their house on the market, but they won't because they're scared and they said no to me. Because estate agents hate rejection. And that's someone said to me, what's the best trait you can have as an estate agent? Learn to love the word no.
I think just a point on that. In my last year as an agent, it was about 17 or 18% of what I sold I had been out to appraise. They went on with someone else and I got it second time round. So I'd write a thank you card. Dear Chris, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come and meet you at your property. I wish you the very best. If things don't work out, I'm here to help. And I'd stay in touch with them and I'd speak to them more than they would hear from their own estate agent. I'd get it second time round, usually more motivated, more realistic on price and at a higher fee. So, and that was the important thing, was it's okay if they want to go use someone else, experience shit estate agency and get it second time round. But the first few years of valuing property, I hated the rejection. But like you said, you learn to accept rejection
And that's the thing is that it's really hard as an estate agent to learn to love it, but just don't take it personally.
take it professionally.
And here's a great piece of advice. What are you going to do to nurture them? Why don't you set up a Rightmove alert called, and the Rightmove alert is called Mrs. Miggins, 4 Acacia Avenue, because you can set the names, all right? And you put a half a mile radius or a mile radius around their house, depending on the location, with the exact types of houses that they're selling. And when anything comes on the market that comes up, Rightmove will tag it, flag it, send it to you, and then you can then send a WhatsApp message saying, Mrs. Miggins, I know you own a 3-bedroom semi on Acacia Avenue. Here's one that's just come onto the market. It's a competitor of yours. I thought you would like to know about it. So you're using other agents' stock as a way to nurture them.
100%.
And you know who to text because the name of the search is Mrs. Miggins, 4 Acacia Avenue. If you're really smart, you would do what they were looking for. Mrs. Miggins, Acacia Avenue, looking for a 4-bed detached house in XYZ housing estate. So if another 4-bed comes on that housing estate, when the email comes through from Rightmove, they'll obviously get it. You will get it. You will then copy the link saying, you're looking for a 4-bedroom semi in the so-and-so estate. Saw this, thought of you. Bang, go. So bloody easy. Oh, it takes time and it's hard work. Yeah, deal with it. Oh, back off with. Oh, Simon, you really are a bad man. But you set me up. You set me up. I don't know. Smash it out of the park. Right. You can see why I love him on the show, ladies and gentlemen. He's an absolute pocket rocket, little star. Right, gross sales. Let's move on. So, here we go. 26,891 sales. Last week it was 26, last week 26.2, the week before 26.4. It's that's not bad. It's not bad at all, Simon. Gross sales year to date, 769, which is 7.5% ahead of last year, 14% ahead of 17, 18, and 19. Average price of a property sold, 360. Mate, that white line's going up. Although, if you look, it does tend to go up in week 30. What's your thoughts?
Um, Well, I think there's two things. One, as affordability's got better, interest rates have crept down. Obviously, been a couple of cuts to the base rate, whatnot. There are more buyers in the market, but at the same time, because there are increased stock levels, it's kind of propping up the number of sales. So more stock has equal more sales. But um, this was the best July since 21. And when I looked at it, only May 2025 has had a better month for sales since March 22. So it baffles me, Chris. Like when I hear agents saying, "Oh yeah, I'm quiet at the moment." Okay, but is the market quiet? Because there's a difference between you being quiet and the market being quiet. You've got to not just look at the four walls of your business. What's going on in your town? Is it an issue of you're not getting called out to them, or actually you're not selling the stock you've already got? There is definitely activity in the market. It sounds obvious to say, but correctly priced properties marketed in the right manner are finding buyers. Simple as that.
You are so, so right. I mean, just coming back to what you're saying earlier on, you're absolutely right. Is that us as agents judge the market on from what we can see, and when
Yeah.
I think blinkered, I don't say that in a negative way, but we can only see what we can see in front of us. The amount of times that I've had a client saying the market's really tough in XYZ town, and you put it up and you can see that their sales are low and their listings are low that month, but that everything else is quite normal. And again, this is why the beautiful thing about the software that we're using, and again, the software we're going to be using later, and again, anyone you might think this is a sales pitch. It isn't a sales pitch, but it is a wonderful bit of kit. Is judge yourself on the market, not judge yourself on your business KPIs, because the market might be flying, you might just be having a shit month.
Can I just add one bit on that, Chris, very quickly? A little bit of a pet hate of mine is when I sound really bitchy now. When I saw agents say at the end of March had record months, I was kind of like, well, I'm not surprised. Most people have because we had the end of the stamp duty deadline. And then in the April, it'd be oh my God, the market's really difficult. And it's like, so you're going to blame the market when your results aren't good, yet it's not the market when your results are good. It was down to you as to why you did well. Like you can't have it both ways.
But then that's that's guilty of most things in life, isn't it? It's a bit like, when a boss says, someone says to an agent says to their boss, "Can I do personal branding and videos?" If it goes wrong, they can blame the boss, and if it goes well, they get all the glory. That's why bosses won't let you do stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. The magic is this: is to compare yourself against the market, and it's like a tide. If it all rises, then everyone's doing well. If it all drops, now if you're counteracting it, then that's your actions, not the market.
Yeah, so your point there for any agents watching this, if sales are up in your patch in July by 5% and your sales are up by 5%, guess what? You're level par. If they're up 10%, you've outperformed the market. Simple.
Data doesn't lie. Right. Average. Now, interestingly, let's just do this. The sell-through rate. Okay. And this is an important stat and this follows on from what you were saying, Simon, is that we measure what percentage of your existing stock on a monthly basis do you sell? Okay. And last month, on average, UK estate agents shifted 15.37% of the houses they had on their books. Again, I find it fascinating that everyone thought 100% of properties were selling in the boom. They weren't. It was less than one in three. Fascinating. Again, people's perceptions. So again, just a good graph. And there's just another graph here. Sorry. So the blue lines are listings, and the red line with a yellow glow is the percentage of the sales expressed as a percentage of listings. So therefore, at the moment, around 75. So if there's 100 listings and we're presently at 75, so I bring that in there, that basically 75 sales. So sales as a percentage of listings is 75. We do put that in a graph later on. I'll just show you the graph now, ladies and gentlemen. Here it is, and it is where is it gone? Listings as a percentage. Oh, sorry about this. Not very. There we go. Sales as a percentage of listings. We do this on a weekly basis. That's that graph there. But if you want to show it on a monthly basis, that's your graph there. Okay. Right, let's move on and move to gross sale. Oh, we've just done the gross sales, haven't we? Fall through. Oh, no, let's do the difference. So the average listing price in red versus the average asking price of the sales agreed. Okay. And what we're looking at here is that the red ones show you that that's what's coming on the market, and the turquoise is the stuff that's selling. You could say, well, and the higher price properties have a lower chance or lower propensity to sell. That's why the red is higher than the turquoise. Why is this graph important? Because we're looking at the percentage difference. And again, you will notice that every summer, the red comes down here, it came down here, and it's coming down here. And that red will bounce back up in the first 2 weeks in September, because of London. Okay, because what tends to happen is London goes dead for the property market. Everywhere else, everyone's just carrying on, but in London it goes dead, and then everyone comes on. And when everyone's putting on their terraced houses for 1.3 million, can you believe it? Terraced house for 1.3 million. Oh, unbelievable. So that's that graph there. That's each week 30 using the same information, but just the gap there. Notice how the average price paid for a property has been hovering around that 353, 360 mark. So there's anything on that before we move on to net sales, fall throughs?
I think just the very obvious point of, when you get that typical seller question the valuation and say, oh, but that one down the road is on at this price. Yeah, but it's on the market. It's been on for 6 months. It hasn't sold. You've got to be showing sellers what things are sold for, and you're not just trying to sell the house once. You've got to sell it twice, I would say. Once you've got to convince a buyer to part with their money, and then the second one is to convince a surveyor who's not emotionally attached to that property that the price is worth it. And they're not going to look at it emotionally like, oh, these are the bedrooms for my kids and this is where my family's going to grow, whatever. They're going to be like, no, what comps are there within what is it, a quarter of a mile completed within the last 6 months? They're not going to go on their report, oh, well, that one down the road's unsold, overpriced on the market for 6 months. They can look at actually sold. So I think that's the crucial thing, comparing apples with apples, not apples with pears.
Indeed, indeed. Right. Let's move on. Fall throughs. So the number of fall throughs this week is 6,337. Okay, which is as a percentage 23.57. So there's been a slight uplift. It's been hovering around the 21 mark for most of the year. She's just nipped up a bit. Although in terms of the pipeline figure, the pipe, I think this is a better one. So let me just remind yourselves, the fall through rate is, look, the number of sales this week versus the number of fall throughs this week, and a percentage expressed as both. So there's 100 sales that come in a month and 20 in a week, and 25 sales fall through. 25 as a percentage of 100 is 25%. That's where the 25% comes from. I think this is a better judge of number. What percentage of your pipeline actually just fell through last month? And it's 5.7. Okay. Anything on that before?
I'd probably say this on every show that I'm on, but just in terms of fall through rates, you had, I think, Brian Mansell on from Gazille last week, other reservation agreement providers are available. But that it just baffles me that more agents are not signing up to reservation agreements to reduce fall through rates. And then the data you and 20A put together not too long ago, which I used in at the presentation I did at the Estate and Success Summit. The quicker you sell a property, the less likely it is to fall through. Again, I know it sounds simple and obvious. Price correctly from the outset, find a buyer sooner, you'll get a better price for it. It's more likely to go through. Just in terms of July, when I was looking at the data rather than as a percentage, just as numbers, let me just look at my notes. I think it was July was the biggest month for fall throughs since October 2022, which was obviously the full month after the infamous mini budget. So it
But let's
shows
not,
that.
but let's not forget we've got over 500,000 properties in sales pipelines at the moment.
What's your point on that? Sorry.
Okay, so yeah, you've got big numbers, but
Because there's a bigger pipeline.
yes,
Yeah, 100%. I'm not disputing that. But I guess again, when there's more, this is just again, I don't have data to back this up. But when there's going to be more sales in a pipeline, that then perhaps means that solicitors have got more volume. Things are going to take longer to go through. Maybe they are a bit slow. And if buyers have got more choice and they don't turn off their Rightmove notifications and they're not in a reservation agreement, if something better comes along, they'll go, screw that, I'll just pull out and go buy something else.
ladies and gentlemen, I am dumbfounded by the fact that you don't know reservation agreements, or if you have, why haven't you embraced them? Now, yeah, because Zeal's one, others are available. I would pick a reservation agreement where the reservation agreement firm actually teach your staff. Don't you teach it because you're rubbish at teaching it. Get them to teach it because they'll see it as a listing getter, not a listing blocker. Because that's what most valuers don't like. They'll see it as a blocker, a listing blocker. Or get your fall through rate into single figures. You know, it's just it's a no-brainer. Absolute. We're not talking modern method of auction here. We're talking about reservation agreements. And if you haven't had Brian or any of the others around, then bloody well get off your ass and pick the phone up to them because they are gaining. And again, Simon and myself, we look at the stats. You can tell who's got reservation agreements. You really can from the figures. They stick out like a sore thumb. That from around 25% into single digits. Anyway, mate, we're off back off the. Let's move on and go to net sales. So net sales this week is 20,540. There we go, which is 5.9% ahead of last year and 10.5% ahead of 17, 18 or 19. This is stuff you're going to get paid on. And there's the graph there. Again, we are above all the years. To say that we are even above 21 and it's amazing. And 22, the number of net sales in week 30 is better than 21 and 22. Of course, it's not going to be as good as 2020. Amazing, isn't it? You wouldn't have called that at the start of the year, would you?
No, considering the interest rate environment we are in compared to post GFC and post pandemic, that kind of dozen-year period, to see the sales numbers we're seeing is bloody good going. And the mortgage approval numbers back it up as well. Just looking at it, mortgage approvals in in June were 2% up month on month, 7% up year on year, and 2.6% up on the 10-year June average. So mortgage approvals are moving in the right direction, and we both know that mortgage approvals are off the back of sales agreed. It's showing what transaction levels are going to be like in a few months' time once they all go through.
Remembering though that only 1 in 2 houses end up you listing actually selling. Let's just show that. We'll just have a quick look at those graphs because I know some of you like them. Okay, let's move on quickly. Here we go. We've had the July figures in. Now this number will change slightly as the more July figures come through, but it won't change massively through experience. Okay, this is the same graph but done a different way. So I will expect, so this drop here, so you got the yellow line with the dots and the red line behind it. That's the July figures. That doesn't mean it's dropped. It just means that the exchanges I've not shown on the 20 EA stats yet, so that number will rise. But what you tend to find is the withdrawals and that they tend to rise roughly at the same rate. So we'll revise this every Friday. But ultimately, 51.2% of homes that left estate agents' books in July, you got paid on and the homeowner moved. The rest withdrawn.
Yeah, I think
We see it every week, don't we? This
yeah,
this is the embarrassment of UK estate agency that we can only shift one in two houses we put on the market.
I mean we're on course to what complete on probably 1.15 million transactions this year. If agents responded to inquiries, marketed their properties better, were a bit more bullish on pricing, that could go back to 1.2, 1.25, which is a long-term average quite easily. And if there was an extra 100,000 transactions across, is it 20,000 agents? Is that a fair, roughly?
Firms 14 and a half, offices about 20, 21.
So call it 20 just for ease of maths to me. If there was an extra 100,000 transactions, so five transactions more each, just basing it on that, average fee of 3 grand, let's say. I appreciate it's not like loads, but an extra £15,000.
No, that'll pay a couple of months on Rightmove, won't it?
That was just, yeah.
Quite a few months, by the way. Yes, yes.
But I think though, yeah, those numbers there. I think a lot of I don't know about you, Chris, but I have some agents come to me and they're like, right, I need to get more leads into the business, and it's like, well, let's look at the data you already have in your CRM. Are you nurturing it? And secondly, what percentage of properties do you list? Bless you. What percentage of properties you list you actually sell? Because you could go spend all this money on marketing when in actual fact you don't need to spend any marketing. You just need to improve on the data you've already got and the properties you're listing.
I was talking to someone today who runs a number of branches in the northwest, and I said there's only one thing quicker in the life than the speed of light, and that's how quick a neg will archive someone on their CRM. And it blew his mind that I said 50% of the people who are going to sell in the next 12 months, you will have most of their details on your CRM because there is a magic sweet spot of between years 4 and years 6.5. It starts kicking in at 4, but it really kicks in about year 5.5, where loads and loads of people move. And this happens all over the UK because I do this in 100 locations with my ghostwriting services. We pick the 100 locations or however many we got, and we analyze the sales that have taken the last 100 sales that have taken place in that town. We cross-reference it against the last time it sold on the land registry, and there is a magic sweet spot of between years 5, 6, and 7 where loads of people move, especially towards the bottom end of the range. And those are the people that you should be getting out your database and nurturing.
Can I give a Brucey bonus to your viewers?
You do not have to ask, Simon.
So so that's the database. Now the stats from the likes of Spectre would say 85% of buyers don't sell through the estate agent that they bought through because of the lack of nurturing and agents not doing what Chris has said. So actually to combat that, if you don't have the database right now, you're younger into your business, go on to land registry, put in the dates from what Chris has just said, download a CSV file, put it into ChatGPT, and be like, produce me a list of properties from this CSV file that haven't transacted since they purchased between these dates, and then go and write to the people.
Oh my God, does that mean you actually have to do some hard work and put stamps on things?
Yeah, I mean, to make it even easier, you could go onto it again. There's slight favoritism here, but you could go onto a platform like Home Search, put in the data range, click send, and they'll do it for you. Envelope franked. Obviously, there's a cost associated to that, but you don't need to write letters or put stamps onto envelopes. So plug for Home Search there.
Yeah, big, big, big fan. Anyway, let's make it sound really easy, mate, don't we? Right, let's move on. So we've done that's your percentage chances. There's your exchanges. Keep an eye on that one, ladies and gentlemen, because those July figures will change. Pound per square foot figures. The orange line is the pound per square foot at sale agreed. And as those that regularly watch the show, the land registry follows that 5 months in advance. You can see there I've moved them across so they do match. Bottom line is this: if you want to know what's going to happen to land registry prices, just go and look what's just see what is today is, compare it with, and then just move the percentage change in 5 months' time. That's what's going to happen. So this you can tell what's going to happen to the land registry by watching that orange line, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we ought to have a look. We ought to bet on it. No, you shouldn't do that because we'll get done for insider trading. Anyway, let's moving swiftly on. That's a proportional split between resi sales. Orange is for sale. Green is the property sold subject to contract. Those are the actual numbers. Okay, that's the end of the first part of the show. Anything before we go to Croydon?
I think the only thing I'll just add on the pounds per square foot there, if you look at where we kind of had that peak before the mini budget, the average pounds per square foot for new listings seems to keep going up, whereas sale agreed has kind of plateaued. So it shows that those that are selling are being realistic on their pounds per square foot, and then those that are stuck unsold on the market, they've perhaps continued to keep thinking their house is worth more than it is, or maybe that's agents overinflating the price to win the business.
There you go, Adrian. So the red one is the new listings, and the orange one is the sold subject to contract, and then the exchange figure is what stuff eventually went for as well on exchange. Right then, okay. Without further ado, let us go to Croydon. Ladies and gentlemen, we are using a piece of kit called Insight from the firm 20EA. Insight is one of many platforms that 20EA have. They have different platforms for business generation and other stuff, but this particular one is for property data. See it as Rightmove Plus on steroids. It goes back 5 years plus the year we're in. It interrogates the data in a lot more detail, and it produces stats which just look absolutely amazing. You will also be glad to know that the only pie chart on the whole thing is this thing here. This 20A platform is available to any estate agent. There is a free version which uses the data for your location going back 3 months. There is a paid for version which they have up to 10 postcode districts for an amount of money which I think is very, very reasonable. I'm not going to mention that price because neither myself or Simon is on commission, although I think Simon we should be, shouldn't we? But never mind. There's a regional one and there's a national one, and you can have access to this data. And if you think about it, if you don't know where you are in the market or how well you're performing, then how do you know how well you are performing? But as I said, there is some amazing stuff in here which shows you whether you are a great agent compared to your competitors. And if you are being beaten by overvaluing or cheap fees, then you can use some of this data to prove that you are the better estate agent. You can get more money for a person's house. You can sell the house quicker. And probably more importantly, your chances of actually selling, because the numbers I'm going to show you on Croydon will blow your mind today on how well the different agents are performing. So without further ado, let's go and have a look. Okay. So for the purposes of this, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at Croydon, and the postcodes are CR0 and CR2. So that's Croydon and that's South Croydon. And I know some agents treat them separately, but for the purposes of this, what we'll do, Simon, is this. I will just talk and you just cut across me very nicely if you see something that you like or just want to just comment on. We are going to be first, so in essence, we are looking at between the 1st of January 2020 and the 5th of August, because we're filming this on Wednesday the 6th, okay? The number of properties that have come onto the market, because it's new instructions, is 29,158, with an average price in the last 5 and a bit years of 417,971. This is important because we can judge the average price of the properties coming on the market to judge where the agents are on the hierarchy of, are they a posh agent? I use the analogy of supermarkets. If you're a posh agent, you're a Waitrose or a Selfridges, and if you are towards the end, you're going to be an Aldi or Lidl and everything in between. So without further ado, let's go and have a look, and we start off with Streets Ahead. Do you know any of these firms before we kick off, Simon?
Um, I've Only, well, I'd say obviously the big ones I've heard of. I'm familiar, I'd say, with Streets Head and Oaks, who I think are independent ones. From just seeing them online. Obviously, know who Bairstows are, Barnard, Marcus, Foxton's, Belfrits, etc., etc. But nothing that's jumping out at me where I'm like, I know the head honcho there or someone
Okay.
like that.
So first off, we start with Streets Ahead, and I've just moved the date to the 31st of July. And the reason that I have done that is to enable me, because if we've only got a few days of August, it can tend to skew the figures slightly. So we look at whole months, and we can see here that Streets Ahead in those two postcodes have slowly, obviously had a good 2020, but slowly their market share has been slowly sliding over the last 5 years. Their average price is 372. When you compare 471, then it appears that Streets Ahead tend to go for the lower to middle market in terms of the sort of properties they attract. And again, if you see by the graph here, you will see that most of it tends to be around the 250 to 300 mark. Okay. Best Louise, which again will be part of their, if memory serves, they're a franchise. And again, their market share seems to be dipping there from around 7 or 8% to now probably about 4 or 5%. We will be looking at the lettings figures in a second, ladies and gentlemen. Barnard Marcus, so they're obviously part of the Connells countrywide chain. And it appears that their market share is slightly grew in 2020. I'm assuming these dips are the Christmas Boxing Days. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You can always rely on country Connell sequence to do the December. That's the December spikes. So it looks like in 22 you didn't have a Boxing Day, but you did in 23 going into 24, and you did in 24 going into 25. And again, what's your thoughts on the Boxing Day campaign? Pro, negative,
Oh
indifferent?
God, don't get me. We're in August. Don't get me started on that. For me, if I was an agent, well, if you look at the whole Boxing Day launches, look at this massive spike. It's a spike because it's comparing it to just before Christmas. The last week before Christmas, people are out doing their last minute shopping. If for anything like me, that's
That
where
is
the
the whole
spike.
month, though. That is the whole month.
Yeah, but in terms of the actual, when you look at the day to day, day by day, then actually it's you're better off launching it just before Christmas or launching it in the new year. I wouldn't want to be personally, I wouldn't want to be launching my property to market between Christmas and New Year amongst everyone else, particularly when there's lots of price reductions as well. I'd rather be before the competition or after it.
Okay, that's from the vendor's point of view. Let's look at it
Okay.
from the agent's point of view. You can see here that the month before they were at 7% and then dropped down to 4, up to 11, and back down to 4. So what you tend to find is if we're a case of robbing Peter to pay Paul, yeah, the net effect is, do you get more listings or not?
Yeah, they
They do,
they
don't
clearly do, but do they end up actually selling those listings? That's obviously the other
they?
question.
Is. We do have the stats, ladies and gentlemen, that look at all the groups, and Connell's sequence group does have an uplift in listings in December, and in January and November there is a slight curtailment, but the growth is more than the drop. So
Okay.
actually, is that any good for the homeowners? Well, Simon's giving his opinion there. I'm not giving an opinion there. Does it net them more properties? Yes, it does. Nothing wrong with that. Oaks. Oh, some spikes there. I wonder have they got some? Look at that.
Hmm.
Unless I don't know. Just can you just Google Oaks estate agents in Croydon?
They're not a
They're
corporate.
not a corporate.
I think they've maybe got a few branches.
Okay. So yeah, it looks like you're doing something in December as well, because there's a pronounced spike there. Let's go and look at Foxtons. Slight drifting down in 2020, average price 406, and it looks like something happened towards the end of 22, and your market share is picking up there. Okay, that's good. Purple Bricks, average price 410, dropping. Paul Meakin, nice and steady, although a slight drop off there. Cubbiton West, something happened in 24. What's happened here, guys, girls? HomeWise, obviously, they're the ones that do the lifetime mortgages, so they're just a repeat of another agent stock. I don't know who does HomeWise, but we can ignore those. Hubbard Torlot, like their name, they're growing. Well done, guys. Sterling Ackroyd, drifting down. Oh dear. Martin and Co. 375. Okay. Truly growth, well done. Heart, Allen Heritage, Pollard Machin. Wonder, yeah. Oh, there you're growing Crane Norton. Well done, guys. Leaders, choices. We'll just go down to 25. Okay. What we'll do now is we'll just have a quick look at the last year just to see if there's any new kids on the block coming up.
I'm gonna predict EXP are gonna be on there. I know that's obvious, but I reckon they'll be higher up than they were. Yeah, there you go.
17th, so EXP, there you go. Bard and Marcus at 7, Streets Ahead drop. So again, we knew that because Streets have been dropping in the, so that is the leaderboard for new instructions. Let's just have a quick look at the leaderboard, and I'll just take a photograph of that so I don't forget. So we will be going to this into a lot more detail in a second. So that's the leaderboard for listings in the last year. Let's see if there's any changes if we go to subject contracts. So Bard and Marcus were in at 1 and they're still at number 1. Okay. Bairstow's at 2. So Bairstow's have moved up. Streets go down to number 3. Hey, it could be like, like disco. Another, hey, pop pickers. Foxton's down at number 7. So again, by the sounds of it, good at listing, probably not as good at selling. We'll look at that in a great more detail. Oaks go up to 5 from 6. Hubbard's up from 5 to 4. And Paul Meekins, well done, Pauls, because you were at 8 at listings and number 6 at sales. Again, we will be going into this a lot more detail in a second, and really analysing it. Let's just see if there's in terms of an upper quartile market. Let's just see if there is such a thing in Croydon. And okay, let's have a quick look. Push that, and then we'll get rid of that. There we go. Let's see who's the moving and shakers. There's not many. So Hubbard, Torlett, and Pollard Machin seem to be, so looks like to be the agent of choice in that posh range, but there's not many houses there. But again, the fees are higher. Anything on that before we move on to stock levels?
Just that I think Hubbard, Torlett, and Pollard matching, or however you pronounce it, they sound like they'd sell more expensive houses.
Right, okay, here we go. Stock levels. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen, that there are in 2020 in July, there was 2,647 properties for sale. That went down in 2022 to 1,855. And since 23, it's been pretty static around that 2,324 mark. That is actually not as prevalent as the rest of the UK. And what you tend to find, ladies and gentlemen, is that the London market for the last 3 years has been on a bit of a downer compared to the rest of the UK. A lot of it's affordability. That's in line, but again, it just shows you the stock levels that we're talking about, and you can see this. Bairstows have had stock. That this is just showing you your stock levels of the properties for sale. Okay, and you just see that as you go. Okay, right. Let's move on to some more important graphs. Right, here we go. Now, this is my favorite. This is my favorite, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot of data going on here. If you're watching this on the phone, you are not going to be able to see this on the phone. So put it on an iPad. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the order that these are in are on new instructions, okay? I want you to totally ignore the new instruction, which is this column here, the new instruction market share, the sold subject to contract, and the sold subject to contract percentage. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to these 4 magic columns here, right? So what are we looking at here? A property will only leave an estate agent's books for one of 2 reasons. 1, it exchanges, or 2, it withdraws. So we know in the last 2 years that in the 2 postcodes, we've got 832 properties have left Bairstow's books because you had the exchanges up and you had the withdrawals up. That is the number of properties that have left agents' books, of which Bairstow Eves have exchanged contracts on 39.6. The average in Croydon is 41. So therefore, just only if you put your house on the market in Croydon in the last few years, you had a 4 in 10 chance of moving, or a 2 out of 5. Shocking. Absolutely bloody shocking. But let's just have a look. There are some amazing numbers there. Look at Hubbard Toilet at
Yeah.
62. Look at Paul Meakin at 58. And that's the beautiful thing here with data is that Hubbard Toilet can, if they were up against Foxton, say, they could say, with Foxtons, you have just over a 1 in 4 chance of moving. With us, you have a 2 out of 3 chance of nearly a 2 out of 3 chance.
Yeah.
That's powerful stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the fact
I,
that you can say that, we're twice as likely to get you moved. What would you rather?
and here's the data.
Yeah.
That just shows you.
But it's like, when they say, but all agents are the same, you all stick it on Rightmove. Well, the data would suggest otherwise because we must be doing something different with our marketing when we're twice as likely to sell your property. And here's what we're doing.
I mean, Webb's at 76. I mean, there's mate. I'm last week. Last week, the gap we were in Truro. The gap between the good and the bad was you could put a. It was really tight. This is huge.
Hmm.
That there are agents in this town that are only selling just over 1 in 4 houses they list, and there are agents in this town that are selling nearly 7 out of 10. And you can prove this, ladies and gentlemen, by using data like this. Now, the way you put this data across, you have to be really, really careful. You have to be really careful because you might get clobbered by the ASA, the advertising agency. But if you put it across in the right way, and if you want to know how to put it across in the right way, then either myself, Chris Watkin, or Simon can help you with this. This is actually our daytime job. Simon and I are kind of competitors, but we're mates first. There's plenty of business to go around. And if you're an agent anywhere in the UK, because I know I can only work for one agent per town, is using data to get you more listings when the data doesn't lie is amazing. You can't do weird stuff like you can on a certain other platform where you can put like a weird shape, like gerrymandering, and you know, you can't do this. This is all of the postcodes, CR0 and CR2. You can't change it, and there are some amazing stats here. Let's look at the fall through rates. I mean, look, there's fall through rates here, 46%. You put your house on the market with purple bricks and your house sells, you have nearly a 1 in 2 chance of the house falling through. Purple bricks reduce the price of
Oh my
68%.
God.
So 58% of homes get reduced. So here we go. 41.66% of homes in Croydon get exchange and complete, and 58 don't. Shocking. Fall throughs at 30%. Anyone here using reservation agreements? I wonder if Man and Co are, because that's a low figure at 17. But look, it's 46 purple bricks. Wow, wow, wow. Some big numbers here. Streets ahead, your fall throughs. That you see, if you could get your fall throughs up, you'd get your exchanges up from 40 a lot more. That needs attention. Price changes. Barnard Marcus, 56. Average time to sell. So 106 days with Bairstows and 89 days. We'll come on to that a bit more detail in a bit, ladies and gentlemen. But there is some amazing stats here, and you can use these stats to get you more business to prove that you are a better estate agent. Okay. Anything on this before we move on?
I just think that there is, unfortunately, just with the personality types of estate agents are preferring competition over competence. What I mean by that is there's agents wanting to win the listing. That's the most important thing in their mind. Whereas a couple of the agents that you've highlighted, let's say Hubbard Torlot, that is a mouthful. I would say they are preferring competence over competition. They're like, let's list houses that we've actually got a chance of selling. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're employed to do, is to sell houses.
Hang on, and a big shout out to Paul Meakins and a big shout out to Living, because these are impressive numbers. And if you're worried, we're not criticizing you if you've got a low number. We're not. We're just highlighting it. Okay. Right, let's move on. Wow, mate. Wow, wow, wow. These are your overvaluing stats. Let me explain what's happening here, ladies and gentlemen. 20EA have looked at all of your exchanges over the last 2 years. That's the first thing. Secondly, for all the exchanges that have come on, when it came on the market, they have an AVM, like a Valpal figure for your property for the property, and they compared that with what you listed it at. So for Bairstow Eves, of the exchanges that they exchanged on, the average overvaluing was 1.4% above what they thought it was worth. And you go down that route, and wow, there's some big numbers in there, mate, isn't there?
Yeah,
Watkins
crazy.
at 4.2, Cupperton West at 5.24.
What's the
Yeah.
average at the bottom, Chris?
So
4%.
the average estate agent overvalues by 2.3%. And the average drop, and what is this figure? Price achieved. That is the price achieved on land registry versus what it originally came on the market for. So isn't it interesting that the ones that are overvalued have the highest price drop from the original price? Now, so how do you work out what's happening here? You take the overvaluing figure and take off the price and take off this percentage. But a lot of people don't like percentages, so therefore let's convert it into pound notes. So I'm just going to mention Bairstow Eves, and then everyone can go down that graph and analyze what this means because if Bairstow Eves put on a £450,000, okay, well, no, here, if the average estate agent in Croydon put on a £450,000 house, they would achieve £440,000. Okay, so therefore, Bairstow Eves would get for the 450 house 442. And as you go down that list, there is some huge numbers difference. And there's one agent in there with some big numbers. So you could say, well, yes, you could go on the market with a certain agent, but here's independent proof to show you that you will get you will lose X thousands of pounds less by going with that agent. And here's the proof. And my advice to you all is get this on your valuers' iPads, train them in how to use it. How do you train them? Just watch the show back a few times. This is how you should be using it, the way we're presenting it to you now. And say, Mrs. Miggins, if you go to the market with XYZ, here's the independent proof that shows you that you will get X thousand pounds less. You will lose X. Remember, loss is greater than a gain with human beings. There's some amazing numbers in there, isn't there?
Yeah, I think the real clear standouts of the overvaluing then having a negative impact when you look at the Foxtons and Cubit and West of what they've initially overvalued it by compared to AVM and then how much they've discounted it by.
I
There's a
mean,
significant change there.
Cuban and West are going to say, well, look, we get 444 compared to Bairstow Eves, but let's just remind ourselves,
How many are they price reducing and how much longer is it taking? How many fall throughs are there? Yeah.
yeah, compared to, that's the magic thing is yeah, they might get the price, but what's the percentage chance of actually getting the house sold? And this is where you need to use data and analyze, well, this is what it means to you, Mrs. Miggins. I would not be using this in social media. It will go over people's heads and will backfire on you, but use it in the house and you'll win so big. Okay, let's move on. How long does it take? So EXP and Meekins are taking 44 days to get from new instruction to sale agreed. Paul's at 39. And you can see as you go, this is the sort of detail, new instruction sold to subcontract, and it gives you the list here as well. And then finally, we'll go and look at lettings. Okay. And immediately you can see open rent. And open rent were around 15% and now around 25%. And again, a stat I use every single week, ladies and gentlemen. 51% of the houses that have come on the market in the last 2 years with open rent were previously on the market with a high street agent. Let's look. Let's look. There you go. Look. Bestos, that's good. In fact, there's a school of thought that says if you're treading water, you're actually growing. Foxtons, Barnard Marcus, they're dropping. Martin and Co. Leaders, Greystar, I like that name. We'll go down to number 20. Oaks, you're growing, well done. Choices. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if my specialization with property data is attracting landlords. Simon's well, there's a lot of crossover, but his special would it be fair to say is more estate agency, although I know you do a bit in lettings. There is a bit of a crossover. But what I would say is this: if you are concerned that this growth in the lettings game is hurting your business because your lettings book is dropping, then please do give Simon or myself a shout out. I tell you what, Simon, just for a bit of what's the name, let's just have a quick look at the top agents' social media and just see what's happening there, okay? If just for some bit of difference, okay. And before you switch the cameras on, we did actually. I asked you who impresses you with the social media, and you said David from Cavendish in Chester. So we've pulled him up as well, and we'll use it as a comparison. So let's have a look at Streets Ahead. So here we go. Okay. Listing. Okay, does this play? No, it doesn't. Okay.
Also, when is it? Did they last post in 2024?
24, 50. So posted twice in July this year. I think it's this year. It might be last year. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay.
Missing a trick.
I'm sorry, guys, but there's no. I'm. Let's just remind ourselves. 2 seconds. Yeah. Okay. Coming through. What's happening here? Surprised it's messing them out. Do apologise, ladies.
There you go.
There we go. There's got to be a link there. So again, there's something. Yeah. Okay. I'm dumbfounded. Bairstow Eaves. I think all of these are. So let's just have a quick look and just see which ones. Last posted in 2023. Okay, let's go. This should be better. Okay, that's posted in spring of 24. Okay, May 24. I'm lost for words. Unless I'm missing something. Please, if I'm missing something at Bairstow Eaves in Croydon. Oh, hello. No, 24. Here we go.
Right, that was May this year. A little bit better.
Okay, we might be missing something. I typed in the word Bairstow Eaves, Croydon, and that's what it came up with. Okay. Barnard Marcus. Listing. Oh, okay. Okay.
At least they are posting.
At least they are posting.
But yeah, where's the video content? Where's the people within the business?
We're on a people business, aren't we? Okay. Oaks. Let's have a look at Oaks. Well, at least they're posting. Again, this is what most estate agent social media looks like. It's just listings after listings after listings with a pie chart put in. It's just like you might as well just put the word right move. Okay. Foxtons, I tried to find Foxtons without any luck with regard to um, individual offices, so they obviously centralize it. My advice is always have them per office. But if you can post, okay, let's have a look. Here we go. This is what I consider one of the best, and Simon believes as well, one of the best social media platforms. So again, a little bit of lifestyle stuff. Make sure you put your listings in. Here we go. Why Chester 34s are taking longer to buy a house. Packed full of stats on Chester. That's good. Couple of listings, which you will like. Okay, we've got some property tours, which I like. David, like to see a bit more people in there, mate. Okay, listings, house prices, rises. There you go. That's good property data there. Oh, like that. That's again graphics on the property market, a map on Chester and what's happening in the property market. I know this is official national statistic data. This is good stuff, isn't it?
It's a good mixture, isn't it? It's not just rinse and repeat. There's, sneak peek listings. There is local market data. There's national coverage. There's bits like that where David's acquired a business. There's a bit of video content. Like you did say, we'd like to see a bit more David and the team in the videos. But it's the same for everyone up and down the country, mostly, right? So, but that's a good example of consistently posting and varying up the content as well.
Indeed, I think David, and again, other people. Let's do a shout out for other people that should follow. JDG Gallagher in Lancaster. She's very good. She's very personable. She does lots of videos as well and puts out local property market content. Anyone that you could think of that people need to go and have a look at?
I tell you, I like what Tom Ashwood and co are trying to do down in the Barking area, getting everyone in the team involved and getting themselves on video. So I'll give a shout out to Tom Ashwood and the team.
Yeah, good chap he is. Anyway, I think we'll leave it there on the show. Any comments before we go?
I think just steady as she goes. Market's in a good place. As we said earlier, correctly priced properties, marketed in the right manner are selling. And if you are too ambitious and optimistic on your price and you don't market it in the correct manner, you will just make it easier for other properties to sell.
I can't disagree with anything. You're absolutely bang on. And if you, as an estate agent, can learn to love walking away from rejection and then nurturing them, if you can, if your need for the listing is greater than the need for the homeowner's sale, you will find it difficult being an agent. But if you can do your marketing right, attract the right sort of people so you can turn away the people that aren't realistic from day one and then put a nurture program in place, then you will succeed big time. But it all starts with great marketing funnel and great nurturing. Is it hard? No, it's not. Is it easy? It is if you put your hard work in, but that's the thing, hard work and patience. Without further ado, let's leave the show there. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week for week 31 of the UK property market stat show, where we focus on a different town or city. But thank you for watching. Thank you, Simon, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Chris.